I don't think right now is the right time to talk about it. Can we talk about it another time? And I've said that because I knew I was really activated. I was feeling a lot of feelings, and it wasn't like sad feelings. I was feeling like defensive feelings, like I was going to fight with him. Hey babes, welcome to Codependency Alchemy, the podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa, and I just got back from my trip Hawaii a few weeks ago, and there has been a lot that has transpired in my relationship that I'm really excited to dive into with you today. Because if there is anything that I have learned, it is that this healing journey of healing codependency is truly not a linear one. And I continue to be given these opportunities where I have way more awareness than I ever have before. And it's really through that awareness that I am able to make different choices than I once made before, when I had no idea that I even had these patterns. So I'm really excited to share a little bit about all of that with you. I am already so homesick for the island. I was so lucky that I have flexibility in my schedule, and I got to fly out to meet my best friend and her family, who just welcomed their third baby and help with postpartum care. For those who don't know, I used to have my master. I still do have my master's. I have my master's in early childhood education with a concentration in Montessori studies. So being around children is like just a dream for me. I love being around them. They teach me so much about myself. I got to learn so much from her little babes, and who are even not so little even at this point. But yeah, just if you have children or there are children around you, you have the privilege of being around children, I would really, really encourage you to see what it is that you can learn from them. So a way that you can do that, this is totally not what this podcast episode is about, but we're just gonna drop this here. Whenever you notice yourself getting dysregulated, heated, maybe a little overwhelmed, then just sit with that feeling for a second, and then just ask yourself, what wisdom is here for me to learn? What is this experience teaching me about myself? And this is not just for children. This is like literally any time that you get triggered or activated. What is this experience here to teach me? What is this experience here to show me? That question, as opposed to why is this happening to me? Why does this always happen? Why do I always end up in, like, those are all disempowering questions, right? When we ask empowering questions, we actually see the gift, the wisdom, the learning, the evolution that gets to take place from our experiences. So like one of her children is just like, I imagine that's probably how I was growing up in certain scenarios. And that's maybe why it was activating, because it was a mirror for me. But I would be like, hey, do you want to help, will you help me by grabbing that blanket over there, for example? And she was like, no. And I was just like, oh my goodness. I'm asking an open-ended question. And so obviously I'm going to open myself up to receive a yes or a no answer. And she didn't say it maliciously. She was just like, no, because she's doing her own thing. And I was like, wow, noticing how the no's really like activated me and triggered me. Like, why would she say no? I asked so nicely, to being like, what is this here to show me? And her, like, the medicine I received from being around her was so, so special, because it was like, where can I actually lean into playing more in these types of conversations? And by the time, like a week later, after practicing this with her, we had such an amazing flow, because I was willing to be creative, one, and be curious, two, And then together we made this relationship that, well, I mean, I've known her since she was born, but like we got to cultivate a deeper relationship in this last like week and a half together because we learned each other's language. And like she taught me and I taught her, because there were also certain things that she did where I got to communicate to her, you know, hey, I'm noticing that my body does this when I hear you say it that way. And then this is what my body does when you say it this way. And so she started even playing with that for her. But it was, I think, because we were both willing, right? I was willing to interact with her in a new way that met her needs for connection. And then she was able to start meeting me and how I desire to receive communication, and that fostered deeper connection in that way as well. So this episode was going to totally be about me coming back from Hawaii and things going on with Justin and I. And that's what I intend this podcast episode to be. But I know that there was a lot of response from the codependency and parenting episode. And so I just want to share that piece of, and this goes for communication across all relationships, but when we're with children, this was a 2-year-old I'm talking about. So just keep that in mind. Like these types of interactions happen with very young children. And it could happen younger. It happens younger than that. So just remember that there's always opportunities to try something new. If there's like, oh no, we've been in this, like they wouldn't do that now, they're 6 now. Just remember that we're all learning and growing, and we're learning how to relate in every single moment. So it's never too late. Even if your children are grown, if you have 30-something-year-old children, there's a woman in the mastermind right now who shared a beautiful moment with her daughter where she got to have this really vulnerable conversation and seeing the positive effects of that. It's invaluable as a daughter and as an adult with children, like to learn how to, one, take responsibility and accountability when you realize that maybe you could have done things a different way, and two, to be willing to hear somebody else's truth without it making it mean something about you. And I think a common thing with codependency is that there's this deep-seated, I have to be right and you have to be wrong, because if I'm wrong, then that gives you proof or evidence or reasons why you get to leave potentially, and it terrifies me. Or there's the flip side of that where it's, okay, you're right, because we're just trying to avoid conflict because we believe that conflict equals abandonment, rejection. So as we get into this episode where I share a conflict that I had with Justin when coming back from the island, I want you to keep in mind that there are other ways to have these conversations than the ways that you've been having them. And your fear of rejection and abandonment are likely going to come up in these conversations. So I just want to validate and speak to that, because that is a very real thing that we're going to experience as we're practicing these new types of ways of communicating and ways of relating. Oof, holy moly, like 10 minutes in and I haven't even gotten to the point of this episode. So let me paint the picture for you. I get back to Portland after a clusterfuck of experiences getting from Hawaii to Portland, which might have to be an episode for another time. I'll just give you the cliff notes of it. They gave my seat away. I had to stay another day in Honolulu, which was truly a gift in and of itself. It was a beautiful integration piece where I got to really be with myself and sit on the beach. And I mean, what better place to be stuck than an island? So anyways, it worked out and I learned a lot about myself and patience. And speaking of conflict, actually, really held a even-keeled level of patience for myself and for the person who was helping me. And also, this will be the theme actually pretty much for this whole episode. It's like, how can we meet somebody else with compassion and love and grace while not overriding our own experience and diminishing it or pushing it to the side or neglecting it. And it really started, now I'm like processing with you guys. It really started there at the airport on my way back, is like, how can I continue to hold two truths? This woman who's helping me has her own truth and has her own experience. And instead of making myself against her, right? And like needing to defend myself and needing to prove why I was right and why she was wrong, I stayed curious and I asked more questions. So when she was like, I can put you on standby for the flight tomorrow, I said, can you tell me more about that? Because I had a seat today and now I don't have a seat. And then she was like, that's just how it is. And I said, can you show me where it says that in writing? You know, like instead of being like, this is ridiculous, you gave my seat away, like, and totally freaked out. Like, that's not what I would have done in the past. In the past, I would have been like, okay, and just walked away and been like, I'm screwed. Or I would have paid for a whole nother flight. Like, in the past, I would have done anything to avoid confrontation at all. I would have been like, you're right. Obviously, I'm wrong, because I just always went that way, that route. You're right. I'm wrong. You're right. I'm wrong. Forget it. Like, I'll just pay the difference, et cetera, et cetera. But this time I was just like, maybe you can tell me more about this so I can better understand the situation, because I don't understand why I'm in the situation. And ultimately, that led to getting a ticket, getting actually a seat for the flight the next day, getting a hotel, and getting dinner vouchers and taxi vouchers and stuff. Because I stayed patient, I stayed curious, I asked more questions, I, you know, allowed her to share with me her process. You know, can you tell me a little bit about like what this looks like on your end, and can I share a little bit about what's going on my end? And then she started asking me more questions, and then we got to a solution together. But could we have gotten to that solution if I just said, okay, you're right and I'm wrong, and I walk away? No. Could we have gotten to that solution if I would have like berated her or like told her that this is ridiculous and that they should cop my flight and that they need to do this and they need to do this? Like, probably not, because then we're at a war of egos and prides, which goes into what happened with Justin and I when I got back. When I got back, it was like we were just like on two different pages. It just felt like very disjointed, which I was surprised about, because that's not usually how it is when we come back together. We do this every year where he goes away, I go away, we come back together. I think it's just a really beautiful thing that we do for our relationships and for ourselves. And this time, yeah, coming back, it was just like, it just, I'll tell you the story that I told myself about what was going on, which is also what I shared with Justin when the time came. I felt like I got back and he had 9, 10 days of basically doing whatever the fuck he wanted, whenever the fuck he wanted. Like, you know, like there was no one sharing space with him, right? So there was a lot of him getting to take up a lot of space and not have any sort of mirror. And that probably was really comfortable and exciting to have. And when I came back, and I'm like, I like to clean and I like to organize, and I came back with this really intense need to like clean and clear my physical space. And maybe because I was cleaning and clearing my friends' personal spaces and organizing, that I just kind of like had this organizing bug in me where I wanted to clean our whole house. I did a bunch of Goodwill drop-offs. I sold stuff on Marketplace. Like, I was going through it. And I think that the constant me doing that maybe brought up the story I'm telling myself, is that it brought up some feelings around him, because he, like, one, didn't want to do any of those things and didn't care to do any of those things, and maybe felt like he was not doing enough because I was doing all this stuff and he wasn't doing any of it. So that led to like certain passive aggressive things that he was saying, like one day, for example, one day when I was moving things around in our room, he said to Frank, he was like, "Watch out, Frank, your mom's fucking up the bedroom," or something like that. It was like something along those lines. He remembers it differently. Um, that's not the point. The point is like how I took it is this way. And even though if that wasn't what he intended or that's not what he felt like he said, like either way, like that was my experience, right? And so that same day, that night, I felt like there was multiple things that had been said that piled up and I was feeling some type of way. And he had gone to the gym that night. When he got back, I was like laying in bed and listening to like what he calls sad music. And he was like, "Uh-oh, you're laying in bed listening to sad music. What's wrong?" And I was just like, I don't think right now is the right time to talk about it. Can we talk about it another time? And I said that because I knew I was really activated. I was feeling a lot of feelings, and it wasn't like sad feelings. I was feeling like defensive feelings, like I was going to fight with him about how he was acting or treating me. And that I knew was not going to be a productive conversation. Like I really needed to get to the root of what was being triggered and activated for me so that I could come and have a conversation with him at a neutral time when I felt way more resourced. And so he just said, "Okay." And I will say I felt kind of bad because I can only imagine what that maybe brings up for him on the receiving end. And I don't know actually. Maybe it didn't bring up anything for him. But I know for me as like an anxiously attached person, if someone said that to me, I would be fucked until we had that conversation. Um so now reflecting back on it, I maybe would have like offered any sort of like, does that work for you? Just to like make sure we're on the same page and answer any questions that he might have. But that's just hindsight's always 2020. We're always reflecting, always learning. Um, so I did decide that I wanted to talk to him about it the next day because I didn't want it to like go on and go on and go on and it just not get resolved because there was obviously something going on where we just like weren't clicking. And so I decided that I was going to have this conversation with him at dinner because it was going to be a neutral place. We weren't in the house. We were, out enjoying ourselves, and it could be this opportunity for connection as opposed to like a fight. We're in a public space, all of the things. And so as we're at dinner, I was like, "Oh my gosh, we're in this beautiful restaurant. Like, do I really want to bring this up here? Um, what if he gets mad at me?" Like all of these fears came to the surface and I felt like it was just like stuck right here, just like at my chest right before you get to my throat, right? Like it was just like stuck and I couldn't get it out. And every time I was about to say it, it was just like something was just shoving it down like don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. And so I really had to like have this internal dialogue of like, it is safe for me to be seen. This is going to bring more connection. This is going to bring more trust into my relationship with him. And it is safe for us to have this conversation. So eventually I got the words out, probably shakiness in my voice. And I was just like, is now a good time to have the conversation about what I had said last night? And he was like, "Yeah, sure." And he was very soft about it. And so then I felt like that softness in his voice was super helpful, I will say, because that's not always the case, right? Sometimes it's like, sure, that feels a little less safe, but still important nonetheless. It was helpful that there was a softness in his voice and he consented. So then I proceeded forward with the conversation and just said, the story I'm telling myself is what I had shared with you guys just a minute ago. Like I got back and I'm doing all these things and maybe you're feeling like you're not doing enough or something like that. And I don't know if that resonates with you or not, or if there's something else that's going on. And he was like, "No, now that you say that, I do think that I'm feeling like I'm not doing enough, like that I should be doing more. And I'm starting to feel like guilt for not doing all the things that you're doing. And I said, beautiful. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that you're experiencing some guilt with me doing all these things. And I would like, I appreciate you sharing that with me. And then I said, you know, what would be supportive for you while I'm doing all these things that I need to do to feel better, right? Like cleaning and organizing and clearing our physical space is bringing me some semblance of like regulation and feeling safe, and it's supporting me in my anxiety. But what I'm hearing from you is that it's almost doing the opposite for you. And he was like, yeah, because I feel like you're thinking I should be doing what you're doing. And I said, that makes sense. I'm doing it for me. So now we get to have this like conversation, right? Where I get to share with him that like I'm doing this for me and I'm not doing it with this like thought that you're not doing enough. And does knowing that help you feel a little bit more spacious around not needing to help? And he was like, absolutely. And so I did share with him, if I reach a point where I am feeling some type of way around you not helping, I will ask for your help. And I was like, just like when I ask for your help to do the dishes, or if I ask for your help to vacuum, or if I ask for your help to like take the trash out or break down the recycling that I piled up, like I ask when I do need help. And unless I'm asking, like I'm usually totally fine and I'm not thinking about how you're not helping. And he was like, okay, that's really good to know. And then we got to just have this whole beautiful conversation around he had a story in his head. I had a story in my head. We put those stories on the table. We dissected it. We figured out, okay, what is true for me? What is true for you? And what are solutions? And then what was interesting was that like I had mentioned his passive aggressive comment, to which he was like, well, that's not what I said. And I was like, I had a feeling that's what you were going to say. And I was like, that's how I heard it and that's how I took it, and pretty sure that's exactly what you said. And he, interestingly enough, was like, I really want to work on that because I don't want to be saying passive aggressive things like that. And I certainly don't want to make you feel like that when I say those things. And I was like, totally, I get it. And I appreciate you saying that. And, he took responsibility for it and accountability for it. And he apologized, which like those apologies always mean the most, you guys. If you're seeking out an apology, this is what I've learned. If you're seeking out an apology and then they apologize because you're like, you should apologize. That's not nice how you said that to me. And then they apologize. It's always like, not enough. You're kind of just like, oh, did you just say that because I told you should apologize for that? Like, and that's what we teach kids too. It's like bizarre to me. Real apologies sound like accountabilities for actions. And when I'm not seeking it out and he provides that for me at his own volition, like that speaks volumes. Like that actually lands in my body where I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And I think the part that lands is the responsibility. It's less of the I'm sorry. It's more of the, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I said that. And I want to do better. It's like, whew, that's hot. Like, yes, please, more please of that. Like the I'm sorry's not saying that they aren't important, not saying that they don't have a place, but like I did that and that wasn't okay and I'm going to work on that is way more powerful. And I try to do that with him too quite often. Whenever I notice that I've done something or said something, I'm like, hey, I said that and this was like my unconscious, but like I can see now intention behind doing that is because I wanted you to feel a certain way and that isn't okay and I'm going to work on that. Like I try to do that all of the time when I catch myself. And so it's also remembering that like we're modeling that. So I think my ability to continuously take responsibility for my actions is also modeling for him that like it is safe for us in this relationship to take responsibility for our actions and grow together. And you know, we're now doing it together, but somebody has to lead. Like somebody has to lead the way and what that looks like. And I, have learned a lot about modeling by being a teacher and working with children and the importance of it in life, you know. It's like what Gandhi said, like, be the change you want to see in the world. It's true. Like, instead of trying to tell people how to be, we show them how to be, and we show them how relationships get to look by providing that to our partner. And I think the focus in so many relationships and the way that I used to relate to even Justin was that, like, I needed to teach him how to be with me or how to talk to me or how to relate to me, instead of just focusing on how I talk to him, how I relate to him, how I am in a relationship with him. And it was when I changed that focus is when just everything fucking changed for the better, because I was just solely focusing on me and how I was showing up. So, anyways, that conversation ended with me trying to tell or ask him, is there anything that I could do to support our relationship that you can think of? Thinking that maybe there was going to be something that he was going to share with me of like something I could do better or something I could work on. But it was so interesting because what he ended up saying was, when I'm saying things that are passive aggressive like that, it would be really helpful if you could like tell me, because I don't think I realize that I'm doing it, but I really want to work on that. And I was like, oh, just like totally blown away. Like, okay, this is about you. And then I was like, okay, but also when you're passive aggressive, usually it's because like you're triggered or activated, and it's not always like the best time to be like, and that's a passive aggressive comment, because then like I don't want to fight with you over it. And we had like a laugh about it, which is also helpful. And it's also helpful to have these conversations at neutral times, right? Like, he's not being passive aggressive in this moment. We're at a nice dinner. We're enjoying the conversation. We just had a vulnerable moment of intimacy and connection through making this repair. So it's a very advantageous time to talk about other things that maybe show up in your relationship and ways that you can, solutions basically to those things. And so I was like, I would love to support you in that by illuminating when I notice that you're doing those things. And I'm also a little nervous to be like, hey, that's a passive aggressive thing that it feels like that's a passive aggressive thing that you're saying. And I was like, is there, like, how can we make it maybe less serious? And so we came up with a word that I would say to help in that fear of it being more triggering. And that word was reflect. So like, can I offer a reflection? And so now if I ever say that, he's going to have a moment of, oh yeah, we talked about this. It's going to tap into a moment that we had that was vulnerable, safe, and like solutions based, so that he can have a different, energetic frequency, for lack of a better word. Like, it's going to tap into a softer part of him instead of like an activated going to war part of him, because he's going to remember, oh yeah, together we came up with this as a team to support our relationship, instead of, oh, she's pointing out a flaw that I need to like, that my ego and pride is going to come in and try to like be better than her, So that is one of the most helpful things that we have done in our relationship, is we've come up with safe words. And that podcast episode I teased like, I don't know, months ago, where I talked about the tool that Justin and I use to help rebuild trust in our relationship after we had broken up and there was betrayal, and not even necessarily betrayal, but like fears of betrayal, fears of abandonment, fears of rejection. And so if you want to learn more about the safe word tool that helped us, not only in rebuilding the trust in our relationship, but even helped us in this current situation that we just experienced. If you want to check out that full episode, make sure you're subscribed to my Substack so you don't miss out on that podcast episode. Also, make sure to check out the June events for our paid subscribers on Substack. It's the Codependency Alchemy membership. We have our masterclass coming up on June 6th, which is going to be about how to communicate effectively with your partner. If this podcast episode was helpful or supportive or illuminating for you, definitely check out the masterclass because I'm going to go over 5 common communication styles, 4 of which we mostly do and are not supportive, and 1 that is extremely supportive and helps build connection and intimacy and trust in your relationship. So if you're looking to learn more about communication styles, this was something that I think continues to carry me through our relationship because conflict comes up. It is important that conflict comes up. It's how we grow together, how we learn together. And it doesn't have to mean these huge ruptures and fights where people feel unheard or misunderstood. They actually get to be points of connection and intimacy. And I'm really hoping to share that in this month's masterclass. You guys voted on it. I was low-key hoping it would win, and it did. So we'll have that coming out on June 6th. If you can't be there live, you can always watch the replay. We also have our June meetup. Our monthly meetups are where I get to sit with you guys, the paid members in the Codependency Alchemy membership, which is only $9 a month, you guys, $90 for the year if you want a little bit cheaper. And these meetups are my favorite because I actually get to walk you guys through shadow work and inner child healing and the ways that I use it to support me through any sort of situation that I'm experiencing discomfort around. It is just so powerful to even just be in a room and listening to how other people are sharing and the process that I walk them through. You guys, you should have seen the chat last month. It was like, oh my God, everyone can relate. Like, we are all having similar experiences. And to hear that somebody else is going through what you're going through is one of the most healing things ever, because we can feel so isolated in our experiences, but to know and hear when another person is experiencing something similar, it is just like a salve to our wounds. It is so powerful. So the monthly meetups is a hot seat coaching session. I get messages from you guys all the time. Do you offer one-on-ones? Do you offer one-on-ones? And this would be the place to receive that support, is on the monthly meetups. We do hot seat one-on-one coaching. I try to get through as many people as possible. Again, if you can't make the live calls, you can always watch the replays. There's always something really helpful in those sessions. And then additionally, we have our AMA chat, which is held in a Substack chat. It's a private thread. So just imagine a private chat room with me for a few hours on the 3rd Thursday of the month. So if you're looking for more community and you want some more one-on-one support that's maybe specific to your situation, definitely check out the Substack membership. Like I said, $9 a month or $90 for the year. You can join by clicking one of the links below in the show notes or the description box below. And last but certainly not least, we are going to do a 3-day immersion. So for those of you who want to get a taste of what the membership is like before you join, we're going to do a 3-day immersion where I am going to take you through what a masterclass would look like, what a meetup would look like, and what an AMA chat would look like. It's going to be a 3-day experience and it's free. So at the end of June, we're going to do our 3-day Codependency Alchemy immersion. You can dip your toe in, get a feel for it before you decide if you actually want to join the membership. And even if you don't join the membership after, it's a really fun experience. I've done these 3-day immersions before. It's so fun. It's amazing to come together with a group of women. And so definitely sign up. It's going to be at the end of June. It's free, so definitely check it out. Sign up. The link for that will also be below. And that's what I have for you guys today. I hope this conversation was supportive for you. I hope you got to take something away from it. If you found this episode supportive or if you find this podcast helpful, please consider leaving a rating or review. It helps other people find the podcast. You guys have been dropping ratings and reviews. Thanks, Frank. You guys have been dropping ratings and reviews like crazy. I am so grateful. Thank you so much for helping me and the podcast grow. And if it was helpful and you think it'd be helpful for somebody else, definitely feel free to share it, whether that's texting your friends or sharing it on your socials. Make sure to tag me so that I can reshare it to my community as well. If you ever want to say hello, I invite you to slide into my DMs. I love hearing from you guys. I love connecting with you guys. Never hesitate to reach out. I love it. And if you happen to be listening on Spotify, please scroll down and answer the poll. I would love to hear if you are planning on coming to the Codependency Alchemy immersion at the end of June. That's what I have for you, babes. I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I will see you next week. Bye. And here's a clip from next week's private podcast episode on Codependency Alchemy, the membership on Substack.
When it kind of has really come to my attention that I finally understand that I can't just rely on my partner for all of that, because for a long time that's what I tried to do.
Yeah.
So that is like, so what's next then?
Yes.
Is where that comes up. Yeah.
Perfect. So, what I would love to do first with you is to do a little bit of the shadow work just so you can see, like, why is this pattern continuously coming up? Because once we're able to understand the pattern and why it exists, I feel like that's really helpful in making lasting change. So, if you're okay with me asking you a shadow work prompt first and we can move through this process together.
Sure. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
So, can you finish this prompt for me? If we don't fix or if we don't resolve this conflict right now, then what are you afraid will happen?
That she will leave me.
Mm-hmm. And if she leaves you, then what will happen?
And that means that I once again didn't have the ability to make a relationship work. There's something
Mm-hmm.
wrong with me. I'm unlovable. I'm too difficult to figure this out.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Mm-hmm. And if you're too difficult and you can't make this work and there's something wrong with you, then what will happen?
Then I'll never be able to make a relationship work, and I'll end up alone and
Mm-hmm.
unhappy and not where I want to be in life, and I'll lose
Mm-hmm.
a person that means the world to me.
Yeah.